So we just wrapped up the first month of 2022, and I thought it'd be fun to put together a little video going over the month of January and just talking about some of the games that I either backed or came really close to backing but decided not to in the end. I'm not going to go super in depth on the gameplay on each of these games because I think there's a ton of content out there already, and I also do have some content of my own as well, which I'll leave links to in the description below. But if you don't know, I also break up my weekly upcoming Kickstarter videos into individual videos for each game. So if you ever want to go back and see previous coverage for any of the games that I've covered, I do have that uploaded. I just always upload them silently so that I don't spam all of you with a ton of notifications. And there's really three reasons that I wanted to make this video. The first one is that I made a similar video to this back in December going over all the games that I backed or almost backed in 2022. And a lot of you left some really awesome comments letting me know how it was useful to you and that it would be awesome if I was able to do this on a monthly basis because it provides a lot more value, and any of the details that I offer that may help sway you one way or the other are more useful to know sooner. The second reason is that I just want to do more on the channel. I really do love doing this, but I want to offer more than just upcoming campaigns on the channel. And one of the reasons I don't do that is just I'm at my capacity between work and other projects that I'm working on and the videos that I already do. It takes up a lot of my time, which is kind of getting into my third point. I just want to get a lot better at talking to the camera. If you watch my content, you've probably noticed there are a ton of jump cuts. There's probably already like 20 in this video, and this one's actually been going really well. But a lot of those jump cuts are because I just stumble over my words constantly. I don't know what it is about being in front of a camera, but it's really difficult for me to just talk at the camera, and then it cascades into the editing, and it just adds hours and hours into my production of one of these videos. But enough about talking about my problems, let's get into the campaigns. And I have two here that I almost backed but decided not to in the end. And then I have four that I did back on some level within the campaign. So we'll start with the ones I didn't back, and the first one is for Final Girl Season 2. And this one just looks like an incredible solo game. It's been getting a ton of positive reviews from different reviewers. It's also a game that's been released already, so you can go ahead and buy some of the previous content in retail. And also it's a game that's broken records on Kickstarter. I think it's the highest funded solo game on Kickstarter ever. So this game's just got a lot of positivity around it. And since this is the second campaign, I would definitely recommend trying to get your hands on the game and trying it for yourself before you go ahead and back this one at a full pledge, because you could just buy the core box and one of the scenarios in retail and try that for yourself before you go all in on a campaign that has pledges up to $329 US. But this is a solo game that throws the player into a horror movie, and there's lots of different scenarios that you can explore. There's Alien, The Thing, and I think there's also a Wendigo and all sorts of other creatures that you'll recognize from different movies, and they don't all necessarily coincide with a specific movie. There's also different movie tropes that it will relate to, and I think there'll also be a lot of that showing up within the cards and the different locations and girls that you'll be able to play as. And the big thing about this game that I think could make it a lot of fun, but it's also part of the reason that I'm not backing it, and that's that you can actually mix up the different locations with the different killers with the different hero that you're going to be playing as. So there are a ton of permutations to this game, which will add to the replayability and variability from game to game. And the way that they package all this is that each scenario will be in its own individual box, and each one will come with two final girls, a monster or a killer, as well as a location. And this is where I'm going to start getting into the reason why I didn't back this. And really what it all comes down to is that the price is just too high on it. And I'm not talking about the Epic All-In here for $329, but this game is just an expensive game no matter what you're getting. In order to play the game, you're going to have to get the core box, which costs $20 US, and you can't actually play anything with this core box. You actually just need this to be able to play any of the other scenarios because it has some shared components that are going to be used across all the different scenarios. And $20 doesn't sound too bad, but then each scenario is also going to add $20 onto that, and I think that you're going to want at least 4 different scenarios. Otherwise, I think this will be a little bit too repetitive and you're not going to have a lot of those permutations, because in order to be flexible with the different games that you're able to play, you're going to need probably at least 3 or 4 different boxes. So that already brings the price up to $100 US, and that doesn't include shipping. So depending on where you live, that can actually add quite a bit more to that price tag. And when I start getting to that price range, it starts to get really hard for me to justify the price tag on this, especially when I can go out and buy games like Dwellings of Eldervale or even Spirit Island, which also have amazing solo modes, but then can also be played with other people as well, and they are both amazing games. And these prices are in Canadian, and I can also get free shipping. I'm not going to go as far to say that the price of this just doesn't make any sense at all. Obviously, people are buying it and it's worth it to them, so we live in a world of supply and demand, and if you have something at a certain price price, it might anger a lot of people or cut a lot of people out of being able to buy it. But if it's selling and you are doing well with your campaign, then I guess the price makes sense. But there is a concept called financial accessibility, and it's something that I want to point out on this campaign specifically because I really want publishers to consider more and more how they can make their game more accessible to people, because you have a subset of people that want to buy this game, but then as you bring that price up, there's still a lot of people that will buy it, but you're cutting out everyone below that price tag who would love to experience the game, but then they're just financially either not able to, or they just don't feel like it's worth that price anymore, so they drop out. And it's really unfortunate that a lot of people who want to play the game and want to buy it are just being pushed out of it for a financial reason, which is really the worst reason to not back a game, because if a game's just not for me, or even if I go as far to say that it's just terribly designed, at least that's a real reason that I just won't enjoy that game. But when I think I'll enjoy a game, but then the reason I'm not getting it is because it's just too expensive, it just feels like a missed opportunity. So I don't know why this game costs so much, but I could make some guesses, and I think it really has to do with their clever packaging system here. And the way that they have this is that each scenario is in its own individual box, and it has its own individual artwork and components, and that adds a lot of cost to the game. They also did something really interesting here, and I really want to commend them on the creativity, and that's that they're reusing the box as the board as well. So you can actually deconstruct the box, and parts of it will be used for the scenario that you are about to play. And on the surface, it seems like this might cut costs, but I really don't think these needed to be boards. They're pretty small, and I think you could have got away with some really nice cardstock and still had the same really nice experience. And then if they did something like that, you could do maybe like a double feature where you have 2 scenarios in a single box, which might raise the cost of a single box, but I think it would bring down the cost overall. And it would cut way back on the amount of packaging that needs to be done. And you could also use double-sided boards, so you could actually merge some of these boards together. And if you really, really wanted to keep the creative packaging here where the box doubles as the board, I would just double-side those boards so that you have 2 scenarios on a single board. And I know that sounds like it wouldn't work because one side has to be the cover art for the box, and I would argue that that's not true at all, and this is the best use case scenario for a sleeve. All you would have to do is put a sleeve on your game. I don't like sleeves normally because they normally don't serve a purpose, but if you were to double side these boards, you could just package it all in a sleeve so that you're able to do that and then still keep the cover art and have these look really nice while cutting costs and making this more financially accessible. But I will say that I've never published a game myself, and I don't know what goes into all that, and maybe there's a ton of issues with what I'm saying, but I do think if the publishers thought about this a little bit more, they probably could have come up with a better way to bring down the pricing of this game and offer it to more people. I really look forward to trying this one someday, but it's not one that I'm going to be backing myself. And the next campaign that I almost backed but decided not to in the end is the 2022 Crokinole Board Season 7. And this looks like an excellent campaign, and if you are interested in getting a Crokinole board, I think this is a really great opportunity to jump in on it. And if you're not familiar with Crokinole, it's a dexterity flicking game where you're trying to earn points by flicking these different discs into different areas of the board. It's super easy to teach, super easy to play, and normally people are always willing to play this game, even if they're not a fan of board games. Crokinole just seems like a game that breaks all boundaries. And it's always really nice to have at your cottage or at your house on a rainy day to just pull out and knock out a few games. I love Crokinole, and I've always wanted to have a board myself, and these ones look really nice. This is their 7th campaign, so they've already worked out a lot of adjustments and improvements from their previous campaigns, and this one also comes with some extra items as well that you don't normally get with the Crokinole board, and it's really hard to find a quality Crokinole board at a price point that this campaign is offering. So if you are interested in a Crokinole board, I don't think you're going to go wrong with backing this campaign, but in the end I decided it wasn't for me because I really want my Crokinole board to be one that is of heirloom quality, and to me that means that it will basically last forever and I can pass it down the generations. And basically the requirement I have for that is that I want it to be solid wood, and unfortunately this one isn't, although it will look and feel like solid wood because they are using real hardwood as the laminate on the board, but this one does have a particle board core. And I don't fault them at all for doing this. It really is one of the reasons why they're able to offer it at such a great price. And it sounds like they did a really great job of still delivering that quality of a solid wood Crokinole board, but at a fraction of the price. This would be a lot more expensive if it was solid wood, so if you don't have the unreasonable requirements that I do, I think this is a perfectly fine campaign to jump into. And now we're getting into the campaigns that I did back, except for not really because I didn't actually back this one yet, but it is one that I'm hoping to back. And this one is for Colab, and this is being offered by 2 designers that I'm already a huge fan of. One designed Dinosaur Island while the other designed Palm Island, and I'm just realizing now that they both created games with Island in the name. They really need to make Dinosaur Palm Island right now. And those are both games I have in my collection, and I have no plan to get rid of them. But for this campaign, Colab is not actually the game that I'm interested in. If you are backing Colab, I think it's an excellent choice. This game does look incredible, and you should definitely back it and call me over because I really do want to play it. But the item that I was most interested in backing for this campaign was actually for the Palm Laboratory. Like I said, I already own Palm Island, and Palm Laboratory is going to be riffing off that with a little bit of different theme and some different mechanisms. And for $6, this is an incredible price. But unfortunately, I live in Canada, and that's not going to be $6 for me because shipping is actually going to be $17 on top of that. So that's why I haven't backed this one yet, but I will be following along with it in the Pledge Manager. And a lot of campaigns do figure out ways to reduce their shipping even after the campaign ends. So if they do push out an update saying that they've improved the shipping, then I might jump back in on this one. Otherwise, it's probably one that I'll just wait for retail. And I don't think there is any surprise here, but the next campaign I backed was Marvel Zombies, and this is the next iteration on the Zombicide franchise, of course with a Marvel theme, but this one does take a little bit of a different approach. It allows you to fight as the zombies, which is really interesting, but then you can also get the expansion, which will allow you to play as the heroes as well, fighting against the zombies like in a normal Zombicide game. And if you are interested in just playing as the heroes, all you have to do is get the Marvel Zombies X-Men Resistance, and it is a standalone expansion, so you only need that box to be able to play that mode, but it can be mixed with the other version as well, and you can also play as the heroes from all the other content that this campaign is offering. But leave it to Command to make a standalone expansion, but then no pledge to get it on its own. I don't know what's going on here anymore, and maybe I'm missing something, but maybe there'll be some option in the Pledge Manager so that you can only get that expansion if you're only interested in that mode. I am a Marvel fan, but I'm also not a huge fan of IP in board games. I find that it makes them a little bit more difficult to play because IP can often turn off gamers, especially ones that aren't really entrenched in the geek culture. But after looking into this one, I do think it's going to be the best version of Zombicide yet, whether or not you like the Marvel IP. And the reason I think that is because of the few design decisions that they made and the changes that they made from the previous versions of the game. The first one being that they completely got rid of the noise tokens, which were always just a nuisance to play with. Every game we played, there would always be a case where we forgot to put noise tokens out. I think Zombicide Dead or Alive had the best implementation of it, and that was a case where I would like to keep it in the game because it actually seemed like it added some more fun to the game. I was hoping to see that transferred to this one, but instead this one completely removes it. I'm fine with that as well because I think the fun that it added was pretty small, and I'd rather not have it than have to remember adding those all the time since it was something that we just constantly forgot about anyway. But the big change is that I think they made a massive improvement on the characters, and this is where I think they did a really great job of implementing the theme with the game, and that's that each character is going to have its own special abilities. There's going to be some similar ones, but for the most part, each character is going to have abilities that no other characters have in the game. So it's going to make each of these feel very different from each other, and the characters that you play as are actually going to matter. The other Zombicides also had a ton of characters with tons and tons of miniatures, but if I'm being honest, they all kind of play very similar to each other. There's only a subset of powers that each character can get, and they just get scrambled up and divvied out to each of the individual character sheets. This made all the characters feel very samey, and I just never really cared which character I played as. And this also includes improvements from the previous Zombicide games as well, where they moved the Abomination deck into its own draw pile, and then you have generic Abomination cards in the actual spawn deck, and when you draw those, you randomly draw an Abomination from the Abomination deck. And the reason that's an important change is because it allows you to just set up the game every single time, and you're not going to have an imbalance in the amount of Abominations that you put into your deck. Of course, in this version, the Abominations are the superheroes, but they did the same thing here where they have a separate superhero deck, so you can always include all the superheroes in your game, and then when you draw a superhero card, you're going to randomly select one from that deck, and that will not only streamline your gameplay and keep it balanced, but it also adds the element of surprise because you never know which superhero you're going to get next. I do like Zombicide a lot, but I have considered getting rid of it in the past because Cthulhu Death May Die does have a lot of similarities to it, but I consider Cthulhu Death May Die just on a different level, and it's just so much better of a game in my opinion. But Zombicide does have its place if you want a less intense game, and it's just going to be a lot of fun and you can just jump straight into the action. So for me, owning one version of Zombicide is more than enough, but I just want the best version of Zombicide on my shelf. And I think that this is that best version, not only from a design standpoint, but I also have some issues with the theme for some of the previous Zombicides. For example, with Zombicide Season 2, there is a lot of lingo in there that I'm not really a big fan of, where they call things like pimp-mobiles and pimp weapons. And I just find that a little cringy, so I'll be kind of glad to get that one off my shelf. And the next campaign I backed was not for a game, but it was just to support the Dice Tower. If you're watching this channel, then you've probably already heard of the Dice Tower, but if you haven't, they're one of the biggest board game YouTube channels that are out there, and they've been around for many, many years, and they cover board games both big and small, and they don't limit themselves to Kickstarter board games like I do. They also cover retail and just any board game in general. If you can't find coverage for it, the Dice Tower usually does offer coverage of their own. And I just have a lot of respect for the way that they don't discriminate against the games that they cover, and also I have a lot of respect for them just doing as much content as they're able to do. They really seem to have a lot of fun doing it, and the content that they offer is super valuable as well, and I do often find myself watching their channel when I'm trying to figure out if a game is for me. I also just have a lot of respect for their team in general. They all seem like really great people, and I do think they all just really love board games, and they are all working to make this board game space just a little bit more fun and respectful to the players and to anyone involved. And Tom Vassell is really not afraid to throw a game out the door if he feels like its design is disrespectful to the players. Just don't forget to also shut the door. But I didn't come here to get more content for my games. I just wanted to support them and the work that they're doing because they were a really big inspiration to me, and it was that channel that I was going to when I was buying my first board games. It's always nice to show support, but it's also nice when you can get something back for it as well, and they are offering a lot in this campaign. So I definitely recommend taking a look through it and seeing if there's anything that you're interested in. Maybe you'd want to take a look at the promo cards and see if there's any for any of the games that you own, where you can get some additional content to mix into your game and add some more variability to your plays. I personally just wanted to support them, so I just backed for the video credit where Tom will do a shout out on one of his videos. I don't really know what that entails. I didn't back it to promote the channel. I just wanted to support them. I don't think I even have any control over that. I think they just kind of thank their Kickstarter backers based on the name that they have on their Kickstarter pledge. Like I said, they're just an awesome group of people. I just want to support them, and I encourage others to do this as well. And finally, the last campaign that I backed, and this one is a bit of a cheat because I also didn't back it for the game. I just wanted some really nice dice trays, and I was in on $1 on the Pledge Manager for the Chai Tea for Two campaign. And I really like the dice trays that they offer in that campaign. I like them because they have the shallow walls, because when you roll dice in a big, deep dice tray, sometimes the ones around the edge are difficult to see. And I don't really care for the rolling of the dice tray. I just think it makes it really easy to pass dice around the table. There's a few games I've been playing lately where I really wish I had a small dice tray like this that I could pass around, and the shipping was subsidized at only $1.50, so I couldn't really find dice trays at a much better price than this with the level of quality artwork that they have. And I just backed for 2 dice trays, and the 2 that I chose were the Tabby Orange and the Porcelain White. And that is all the campaigns that I either backed or almost backed in the month of January. If you made it this far, let me know what you think and if you like this sort of content or if you think I could do anything a little bit better. Thanks so much for watching, and feel free to leave a comment down below letting the rest of us know if there's any campaigns that you backed or came really close to backing. And that's all I have for this episode, so until next time, keep that shelf cluttered and the table full.